I'll give you an example in just a minute, but those ideas that are produced by places like the Jackson Laboratory using state funding, federal funding, and what have you, are in the public domain. When we discover something, we announce it to the world. And then people out in the world use those ideas to develop products and services and build companies. And so that's the fundamental concept here of clustering. Mm-hmm. Can I give you an example?
Please.
Okay. So I talked earlier about Sue Ackerman and her work with the sticky gene, the switch that may turn on Alzheimer's, and the other gene that may turn it off. Mm-hmm. Okay? So here's a new scientific insight developed just in the last 18 months or so. You know who paid for that work? You did. Your taxes went to Washington. They went to the National Institutes of Health. The NIH made a grant to Sue to support her research. She discovered these two very important genes related to Alzheimer's. Now, under the terms of that grant, that information is public knowledge. And so she published her findings in great detail in a scientific journal that goes all over the world. So her findings now are part of the public domain of ideas from which others are going to build products and services. So we don't yet know if Sue's ideas are going to be the answer to Alzheimer's. But they're very important insights. And if you were a drug company, I'm willing to bet that you would like to have a place nearby where people like Sue were grinding out day after day scientific insights that could lead you to new drug discoveries. And so that is the fundamental concept here, that the kind of work done at the Jackson Laboratory will generate ideas from which others can build businesses.
And they're all in the public domain. And so now I can see the reason for the public helping to finance these things, because we're going to benefit by it, aren't we?
That's precisely the idea.
Yes.
When I talk to people, they say they refer to the Jackson Laboratory and they say, your company. And I always say, we're not a company. We are a private, not-for-profit research institute. Nobody earns a profit or takes home a dividend check. All the money that we generate goes back to support the research that's our reason for existing. And virtually all of that information, all of those findings, belong to the public. Mm-hmm. And the public uses that information to build new products, services, drugs, medical treatments. That's the fundamental idea behind the research cluster proposed for Collier County.
I know I'm hoping that you discover some of these things before I get too much older so that I can benefit by them. You know, I wouldn't mind paying $100 a year to I mean, not that that's any figure that I shouldn't use, but I mean, if somebody asked me, and then I might not get cancer, or if I got it, they would be able to eliminate it from me instead of letting it kill me or something, you know. I just think that I would like to invest in something like that if the opportunity presented itself. But you mentioned,
let me offer a word of caution here, because I think it's important not to overpromise people.
Okay.
And I know that what you're saying is lighthearted, but you know, we're not going to discover the final cure for cancer next week. Mm-hmm. This is something that's going to take time, but I believe very firmly that during my children's lifetime, my grandchildren's lifetime, that the kind of work that's going to be performed here in Collier County at our institute is going to make a tremendous difference in the health of future generations. And if it comes quickly enough to help you or me, that's great. But, you know, we're really talking about the future here. We're talking about doing something for our kids, I think.
I'm going to wander off this subject for a moment, but talking about the future and doing things for our kids, I think how often people would maybe have objected when people interested in parks said, we wanted to create this national park. I want to do this. I want to preserve these hundreds of thousands of acres. And I'm sure people said, we don't want, you're taking the best land. We want to keep that for us. That was many, many years ago. Now we, who are benefiting by all of this foresight, are enjoying these parks every day, and we're thinking, boy, nobody would have ever been able to do that today. And I think that same way about you. I think, yeah, you know, we might not see it right now. We might not see it in our lifetime, but somebody's going to say, I'm sure glad they were smart enough to do this when they did, rather than let this opportunity slip by. And I tell you, this is coming from a very personal point of view. I would hate to see you move someplace else and discover these things, and we would just have to sit there and shake our heads and say, boy, we had an opportunity, but we decided not to take it. And, you know, that bothers me. Now, coming back to diversification, and I think this is an important thing that you mentioned. Right now, we have extremely hot weather going on in Collier County. Actually, our Gulf of Mexico is heated up unusually warm and very quickly, which is indicating to us that we might have a very active summer season with high winds and so forth. I'm not going to go into any H words or anything. And you know, people are concerned about that. We also worry about the tourism. We worry about what that can do to our community and to even the growing fields and so forth. This is an important thing because we in Collier County are affected greatly by seasons, by weather. And then, if that hurricane happens to stir up this oil spill out there and happens to drive it to our coast, we'll be devastated. And your facility will never be affected by weather or temperatures or you know, your fields or anything like that. You're just a year-round research institute, and that to me is very attractive. So I just wanted to mention that diversification because that's, I think, what the EDC has been trying to get at all along, and they've worked at it for years, trying to find an industry that could survive our summers and our off seasons and are dependent, like restaurants, for instance, on how many people are here. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Can I
Sure.
just comment on that?
Sure.
I think that is really a critical concept, and I think that a lot of people in Collier County, and I've talked to hundreds now, are concerned because they wonder, well, gee, if the laboratory is built here and we develop this practice in genetic medicine, you know, is it true that we're really going to see these benefits? Or we're going to see these other companies and institutions moving in? And I think it's really important to understand that the state of Florida has been at this now for 7 years. And they have brought to the state of Florida some of the best research minds, biomedical research minds in the country. And so there's a growing biomedical presence in the state. They're fifth in the nation for the creation of biomedical jobs in the last study. And Florida is going to become, we're convinced, a center for biomedical research. You know, if you think about Cape Canaveral in 1962, there wasn't very much there. But a whole industry grew around that now employs, I would guess, millions of people directly and indirectly. I don't know that this institute and this research village that we're talking about, I doubt that it employs millions. But it will be an important force in diversifying the local economy. And the people who have worked so hard to recruit us, I know, are going to be working really hard to recruit others to this. And I firmly believe that within a very few years, you will see out in eastern Collier County a number of scientific research institutes, and you'll see a growing number of private biomedical research firms there. And that's going to be a whole sector of the economy that isn't cyclical in the same way that construction and tourism is. So I think it's a really important concept. It's the whole, frankly, there's two reasons why I think people should care about this. The first is that the science is absolutely going to change our lives. And the second is that the economic effects of building this here in Collier County are going to be ones that have, I think, really profound effects on the county.